When you purchase a courtside ticket to a professional basketball game, you expect to witness high-level athletic drama. But nobody in the building could have predicted the legal and cultural earthquake that erupted when security guards surrounded a former NBA veteran and marched him straight out into the Chicago night. The moment the footage hit the internet, showing Enes Kanter Freedom being confronted by arena staff and escorted through the concourses of Wintrust Arena during a Chicago Sky game, it triggered an instantaneous firestorm that caught the entire sporting world completely flat-footed. What initially looked like a brief, confusing scuffle between a spectator and arena personnel rapidly metastasized into a full-scale legal nightmare that has sent shockwaves through the highest executive offices of the league. Within hours, public statements were flying, social media platforms exploded into ideological warfare, and the threat of an explosive, multi-million-dollar lawsuit was officially placed on the table, leaving league officials scrambling to contain a public relations crisis that refuses to go away. To understand why this specific incident ignited such an intense panic, you have to look at the turbulent, polarizing history of the man at the center of the storm. Enes Kanter Freedom is not an ordinary former professional athlete looking for a quiet evening of basketball. He is an internationally recognized political activist who has spent years deliberately clashing with powerful institutions, corporate giants, and sports leagues. From his high-profile public feuds with international governments that resulted in his passport being revoked, to his fiery public attacks against sportswear conglomerates and NBA executives over international manufacturing practices, Kanter has built an entire post-basketball identity around challenging corporate authority. In recent years, he turned his outspoken commentary directly toward the world of women's athletics, frequently appearing on national news programs to voice strong, controversial opinions about who should be allowed to compete in female sports categories. When someone with that specific background and an enormous media platform walks into a modern sports arena, the atmosphere is already charged with tension before the ball is even tipped. The events that unfolded courtside during that fateful Chicago Sky matchup remain a subject of fierce, bitter dispute between both sides of the legal battle. According to accounts from Kanter and his representatives, he attended the game as a standard-paying spectator, intending to watch the competition and support women's basketball from the front row without causing any public disturbance. However, as the game progressed, his presence inevitably drew attention from surrounding fans, leading to whispered conversations, pointing, and eventually complaints directed toward guest services. Kanter alleges that without engaging in any profanity, physical aggression, or disorderly conduct, he was suddenly approached by a swarm of venue security officers and team representatives who informed him that his presence was causing an unacceptable disruption. Within minutes, the situation escalated from a quiet conversation to a forceful ejection, with security personnel making it crystal clear that he was no longer welcome inside the facility. The official response from arena management and team officials painted a radically different picture of the evening's events. Representatives for the venue insisted that the removal was strictly a matter of operational protocol and fan safety, asserting that the interaction had nothing to do with personal politics or public expression. According to their narrative, security personnel acted within standard operating procedures after receiving multiple reports of disruptive behavior and unauthorized filming that violated the fan code of conduct printed on every admission ticket. Arena officials argued that every ticket holder agrees to a legally binding contract granting the venue broad authority to remove any individual whose presence or actions threaten the peaceful environment of the event. But for Kanter's legal team, those explanations were viewed as nothing more than a convenient, retroactively fabricated cover story designed to mask a blatant act of ideological discrimination. The escalation moved with terrifying speed from the court of public opinion straight into the court of law. When Kanter officially retained high-powered civil rights and constitutional attorneys to file a formal lawsuit against the Chicago Sky organization, the venue operating group, and affiliated league entities, the entire nature of the controversy transformed. The legal filing did not hold back, laying out explosive allegations of wrongful removal, intentional infliction of emotional distress, breach of ticketing contract, and violations of public accommodation laws. The lawsuit claims that Kanter was specifically targeted, humiliated, and publicly ejected solely because of his well-known political viewpoints and his past public criticisms of the league's corporate partners. By framing the ejection not as a minor venue disagreement, but as an orchestrated discriminatory act against a paying patron, the legal team set the stage for a prolonged, high-stakes court battle that could expose the inner workings of the organization to unprecedented public scrutiny. Behind closed doors, the filing of this lawsuit caused an immediate wave of panic inside the executive suites of the league. While corporate sports organizations routinely handle legal disputes regarding slip-and-fall accidents or vendor contracts, a high-profile civil rights lawsuit brought by a famous, media-savvy former athlete presents a completely different level of danger. The primary fear keeping front office attorneys awake at night is the dreaded discovery phase of modern litigation. In a lawsuit of this magnitude, the plaintiff's legal team gains the legal power to subpoena internal communications, text messages, Slack channels, security logs, and executive emails exchanged between team owners, arena staff, and league officials leading up to and immediately following the ejection. If internal messages reveal that staff members discussed removing Kanter based on his political reputation rather than a legitimate documented safety violation, the legal and financial liability for the franchise could be catastrophic. The fallout quickly expanded beyond the courtroom, capturing the attention of the national media and transforming the incident into a massive cultural battleground. Within 24 hours, clips of the ejection were being played on loop across major cable news networks, morning talk shows, and sports debate programs. Pundits on one side of the ideological spectrum rallied around Kanter, holding him up as a victim of corporate censorship and cancel culture within professional sports, arguing that paying fans should never be ejected from a public venue simply because their personal views make other people uncomfortable. On the other side, defenders of the league and the venue argued that private sports organizations have an absolute right and responsibility to protect their players, staff, and fans from perceived provocateurs, insisting that arena safety must always take precedence over an individual's desire to make a personal statement. This intense, non-stop media storm created an enormous, unwelcome distraction for the Chicago Sky players and coaching staff who were trying to navigate a crucial stretch of their competitive season. Professional athletes dedicate their entire lives to training, studying film, and executing game plans, but suddenly, every post-practice media availability and post-game press conference was dominated by questions about a legal battle involving a former NBA player who had been sitting in the front row. Players found themselves trapped in an impossible situation: either comment on a sensitive, highly politicized legal matter and risk alienating fans, or violating league media policies, or refuse to answer and face accusations of dodging the controversy. The tension inside the locker room was palpable, as team leaders desperately tried to redirect the public focus back to the hardwood, while the external circus continued to grow larger with every passing day. The controversy also reignited a fierce, long-standing debate over the legal boundaries of the fan code of conduct across all major sports leagues. Every sports ticket in modern entertainment contains microscopic legal fine print on the back or within a digital terms of service agreement, granting the home team virtually unlimited discretion to revoke a fan's license to attend the game at any time for any reason. However, legal scholars have pointed out that this broad contractual authority is not completely unlimited. Private venues that open their doors to the general public are still bound by state and federal civil rights statutes that prohibit discrimination based on protected categories. The core question at the heart of Kanter's lawsuit challenges the very foundation of modern venue management. Where does a stadium's right to maintain order end? And where does a patron's right to be free from arbitrary, viewpoint-based discrimination begin? The financial stakes of this legal showdown are massive, extending far beyond the immediate damages sought in the complaint. In an era where sports franchises rely heavily on corporate sponsorships, broadcast partnerships, and community goodwill, being branded as an organization that violates civil liberties can cause irreparable harm to a team's commercial value. Corporate sponsors that happily attach their logos to arena banners and digital scoreboards become extremely nervous when a franchise gets dragged into a toxic, highly publicized culture war that alienates large segments of the consumer market. If major marketing partners begin questioning their investments or demanding indemnification clauses to protect their own brand equity, the financial damage to the Chicago Sky and the broader league could easily stretch into tens of millions of dollars in lost sponsorship revenue. Furthermore, the legal strategy deployed by Kanter's counsel appears deliberately designed to force a high-pressure settlement or a public trial that keeps the story in the headlines for months, if not years. By naming individual security contractors, facility management executives, and organizational leaders in the complaint, the lawsuit creates personal legal pressure on individual employees who may not have the institutional backing to withstand a grueling deposition process. In many similar sports lawsuits, the threat of exposing embarrassing, unvarnished internal communications during a public trial often forces corporate defendants to write massive settlement checks behind closed doors to make the problem quietly disappear. But given Kanter's track record of refusing to back down from public fights, legal observers believe he may be far more interested in using a public courtroom to make a lasting statement than in accepting a quiet, confidential financial payout. The broader implications for everyday sports fans attending live games are equally profound. If this lawsuit proceeds through the judicial system and establishes a new legal precedent regarding fan ejections, it could permanently alter how arena security guards, police officers, and guest services staff interact with spectators at every stadium in the country. Venue operators may be forced to implement rigid, highly documented protocols before removing any patron from a seat, requiring comprehensive video evidence, multiple written warnings, and strict supervisory approval to protect themselves from retaliatory civil rights lawsuits. The days of venue security making quick, subjective judgment calls to remove a spectator simply to diffuse courtside tension could soon be replaced by a cautious, legally paralyzed security environment where staff members are terrified of touching a high-profile guest. As the legal proceedings grind forward through the preliminary motions, jurisdictional challenges, and initial discovery requests, the tension between the parties continues to simmer at an all-time high. Kanter has continued to use his massive social media reach to provide regular updates to his followers, framing his legal battle as a righteous fight for the basic rights of every sports fan in America, while the legal defense team for the Chicago Sky and the arena works furiously behind the scenes to file motions to dismiss the complaint before it can reach a full evidentiary hearing. Every legal filing, every affidavit, and every court date is being tracked with intense fascination by sports law analysts, civil libertarians, and sports fans who recognize that the outcome of this case could reshape the cultural dynamics of live entertainment forever. The situation serves as a stark, unforgettable reminder of the delicate, combustible intersection where modern politics, sports entertainment, and corporate legal power collide. Professional basketball arenas used to be viewed as neutral sanctuaries where people from all walks of life could leave the divisions of the outside world at the door and unite around the simple joy of athletic competition. But in an increasingly polarized society where every public space is treated as a platform for political expression and ideological warfare, the boundary separating the game from the culture war has completely vanished. The chaotic scene at Wintrust Arena was not an isolated anomaly. It was the inevitable explosion of pressures that have been building beneath the surface of modern sports culture for over a decade. Whether the Chicago Sky and the league successfully defeat the lawsuit in its early stages or find themselves dragged through a brutal, highly publicized trial in open court, the damage to the sport's public image has already been done. The incident has left an indelible mark on the season, serving as a cautionary tale for sports executives who underestimate the speed with which a courtside altercation can transform into a full-scale institutional crisis. The panic that swept through the front office in the immediate aftermath of that viral ejection was entirely justified, because they realized what the rest of the world is now seeing in plain view. Once you open the door to political scrutiny and legal discovery, you lose complete control over the narrative, and the consequences will echo far beyond the final buzzer. The deeper one examines the institutional response to this high-stakes confrontation, the clearer it becomes that the modern sports complex is fundamentally ill-equipped to handle the chaotic dynamics of viral celebrity activism. For decades, major sports leagues operated with an almost untouchable level of unilateral authority within the walls of their own buildings. If an individual in the stands made a player uncomfortable, displayed an unapproved sign, or created an environment that clashed with the family-friendly corporate atmosphere being broadcast to television audiences, arena security would swiftly and quietly remove that individual with zero public accountability. The fan had no platform to challenge the narrative. The local press rarely investigated the details of a routine ejection, and the team's version of events remained the unchallenged truth. But the explosion of smartphone cameras, direct-to-consumer streaming, and decentralized digital media has completely destroyed that traditional power monopoly. When an ejection occurs today, the entire world sees the unedited, raw footage within seconds, long before the franchise's public relations department can draft a polished press release. The speed of digital information creates an immediate narrative vacuum, and whoever captures the public's attention first inevitably controls the emotional trajectory of the story. In this case, Kanter's immediate, aggressive public pushback framed the narrative around individual rights and corporate overreach before the league even had a chance to coordinate its official response with arena management. By the time the venue released its formal defense citing standard fan safety guidelines, the public had already divided into deeply entrenched camps, turning a standard operational procedure into a full-blown referendum on institutional fairness. This structural vulnerability has exposed a massive rift within the ranks of sports management professionals across the nation. Behind the scenes, venue operators, security consultants, and sports franchise legal teams are holding emergency meetings to completely reevaluate their spectator policies. Security personnel who were previously trained to quickly diffuse uncomfortable courtside interactions by removing the perceived source of tension are now being warned that their actions can instantly trigger federal litigation and multi-million-dollar PR nightmares. The calculated risk calculus of venue security has been fundamentally inverted. Is it safer to remove a controversial figure to appease surrounding fans? Or does removing that figure create a far greater legal and reputational catastrophe for the organization? The ripple effects of this dilemma are already being felt in sports arenas across the country, where front offices are desperately trying to avoid finding themselves in the same legal crosshairs. Security teams are being instructed to document every single interaction with high-profile guests using body-worn cameras, detailed audio recordings, and third-party witness statements before taking any formal action. The casual, discretionary authority that security guards once enjoyed is rapidly being replaced by rigid, bureaucratic protocols designed entirely to withstand intense courtroom cross-examination. In attempting to protect their brands from unpredictable public controversies, leagues are finding themselves trapped in a sterile, legally paralyzed environment where every operational decision is dictated by the fear of litigation rather than common sense. At the same time, this high-profile legal battle has brought uncomfortable scrutiny to the broader financial relationships and political alignments that govern modern professional sports. When a lawsuit explicitly alleges that an athlete was targeted because of his public criticism of corporate sponsors and league partners, it forces the entire business model of sports entertainment into the spotlight. Fans and analysts are forced to ask difficult questions about the extent to which corporate marketing agreements influence the treatment of paying spectators. Does a multi-million-dollar corporate sponsorship give a brand the unspoken power to dictate who can and cannot sit courtside at a public sporting event? The mere existence of these questions strikes at the very heart of consumer trust in the integrity of professional sports organizations. As this dramatic legal showdown continues to unfold, the stakes for everyone involved could not possibly be higher. For Enes Kanter Freedom, this lawsuit represents the ultimate test of his ability to hold powerful sports institutions accountable using the legal system and the court of public opinion. For the Chicago Sky and the wider league, it represents a perilous crisis management test that will challenge their legal defenses, their operational integrity, and their ability to maintain control over their own home venues. And for the millions of sports fans who fill arenas across the country every single week, it represents a defining moment that will clarify their basic rights as paying consumers in an increasingly complex, commercialized world. The battle lines have been drawn, the legal machinery is in full motion, and the final outcome of this high-stakes confrontation will reverberate through the world of professional sports for years to come.